The paradox of music is that it has no obvious biological function, no use in everyday life.
Music was like the only thing that ever really made sense to me, I guess.
And it's amazing how people agree that singing makes you happy.
It can be quite disturbing.
I can hardly speak after it, actually, because it always has the same effect on me.
Have you ever wondered how it is that music has the ability to provoke emotions in us perhaps greater than any other art form? Ralph Allwood, MBE, was formerly Director of Music at Eton College for 26 years. He has spent half a century working with music and believes it to be key to happiness.
So I saw this fellow, and I'm always just talking to people randomly, and he was singing away to himself. And I said to him, "I'm nice to hear you singing." And he said, "It's the only way I keep happy at the moment." And it's amazing how people agree that singing makes you happy and that music makes you happy, and in a way that all sorts of other things that we do don't. And in educational things, it's what it's all about for me.
Everything that we hear is a consequence of vibrations, but how is it that music can affect us physically? Neuroscientist and musician Professor Alan Harvey explains the science behind music's superpower.
It has very complex pathways that come up through the brainstem. So it has a number of relays that come up through what's called the medulla, and then up through the middle part of the brain up to the thalamus, where it then gets processed to go up to the cortex, to this part here, the temporal lobe.
As the pathway continues up through here, it goes through regions which control our respiration, blood pressure, and even areas which control sweating and hair raising.
So there have been people suggesting that because sound comes up through that way, it has the opportunity to interact with some of those fundamental processes, whereas vision from the eye basically goes straight to the thalamus. It does not go through that brainstem initially. So it goes eye, thalamus, cortex in a much more direct link.
In fact, there is even evidence to prove music's impact on hormones. One example is its effect on oxytocin levels.
It's sort of called the love drug or the hug drug or the love hormone or something, because it's released during pregnancy, for birth and for production of milk. It's important in mums and infants for developing attachment and binding between, develop that social interaction between the newborn and the mum. And it turns out that music seems to impact on oxytocin in very interesting ways. For example, one of the nicest studies is one that shows that when singers are singing together, there's not much impact on oxytocin unless they start improvising. Spontaneous, creative, improvisatory, musical behaviour requires really close interaction between individuals. Everything has to be done in the social context of this bigger creative organism that's more than yourself. So that makes sense that's when some of these hormones are perhaps most generated, sometimes putting yourself in second place for the benefit of the group in which you find yourself.
Knowing the effect that music can have on others, I was keen to find out how responsible artists feel to provide those experiences.
It's a little bit daunting to have people, base all their experiences off of what I'm going through, asking me advice. And I'm I know as much as you do. I'm still struggling with totally understanding my sexuality and identity. It's a growing thing. So it's a little bit daunting to suddenly be the face of something. But I try and help people as much as I can and try and give people a voice, and I think that's the most important thing.
For DJ, producer and singer-songwriter S.G. Lewis, creating music is a lifetime passion project.
Music was the only thing that ever really made sense to me, I guess, and it was just it was the only thing that I was ever properly obsessed with. For most of school, I was kind of, I would do these concerts and I would be involved in the music scene at school, whatever, but it never really occurred to me that it could be a career until I was applying to do mechanical engineering. I actually had one of the teachers, and he was basically what are you doing? And I was like, well, you know, I'm going to go and do this. And he was like, you don't even like that. And I was like, well, no, not really. And then he was like, look, if you don't try music, if you don't at least try, you're going to hate yourself for the rest of your life. And I was like...
So is there anything special about the human connection with music? Consultant neurologist at Queen's Medical Centre in Nottingham, Miles Humberston, notes a basic human interaction with music.
About recognising a tune that's played regardless of the key it's played in. So, for example, if you heard Celeste singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, or you heard it played on a penny whistle or on a euphonium, you'd recognise it instantly, even if it was something you'd never heard played that high or that low before.
Miles explains that this seemingly simple task is thanks to centuries of evolution.
If you look at people doing experiments where they have to transpose sound in a functional MRI scanner, what you find is that an area of brain lights up in the right parietal lobe called the intraparietal sulcus. And that's an area of brain that's known to be involved in primates, an area of brain which has evolved as a visuospatial transposition area in primates who are living in trees and in whom it's very important to have very strong visuospatial skills. But in humans, as well as fulfilling that purpose, it's been repurposed to do an analogous operation on sound, so transposing two series of notes to see whether they're the same or different. So it may be that transposition of sound is something that's uniquely human.
What's even more incredible is that it's now possible to calculate how far back this musical ability stems.
The oldest musical instrument that's been found is a bone flute that was made from the wing bone of a vulture, and it's about 40,000 years old. To go back beyond that, you probably need to use other circumstantial evidence. And if you do that and you compare humans to Neanderthals, who were our closest cousins, you find they're almost identical. So we have every reason to suppose that Neanderthals had the capacity to sing. And if both species or subspecies had almost identical features, it's reasonable to assume that those features were also present in their common ancestor, which was about 600,000 years ago.
Back in the present day, I wanted to find out what the experience is like for today's musicians and what music gives to them.
You can't even really explain it. It's just like, you just watch someone like shouting it or crying their eyes out while they're singing it, and you're just like... how did this happen? How did this thing that you just kind of... It's something out of nothing, which is just I don't think there's many things in life that are that. It's just this thing that you've created and then it's resonated with people, and it's again, it's just you're waiting for the moment where someone comes around the corner and is wait a minute, you shouldn't be doing this, or you tricked someone, or it just feels very it feels like you're viewing yourself from the outside or something. But at the same time, it's an amazing feeling, and it's once you kind of are able to process that and just be able to take it in, then it's definitely just an amazing thing.
American pop star Frances Forever finds the writing stage of music beneficial psychologically.
I tend to write from what I'm going through at the moment. I think that's kind of where my most honest, intimate songwriting comes out. Because I also use songwriting as a creative outlet a lot of the times to sort of clear my head.
However, what is perhaps most beautiful about music is its ability to highlight those nearly forgotten memories. For Ralph Allwood, MBE, it's a connection between him and his father.
There is Summertime, which continues with those chords, and they're sort of beguiling. and it doesn't change until here. So I can hardly speak after it, actually, because it always has the same effect on me. I mean, partly because my father loved it as well, I think.